Go.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to another PropTech Ramble. Thank you for those people joining us live on Unisu, Simpatico and YouTube. Today we are talking about offices and buildings, of course, but we have today Toby Crosby, Chris Davis and Lewis Barker. Toby, rather than me do a really bad intro, could you do a quick intro, please?
Yeah, so I'm Toby Crosby, CEO and founder of Making Moves. We're a relocation business based in central London, and we advise companies on their office moves. My role at the business is general day-to-day running of the business. We spend a lot of time trying to improve and create a collaborative and productive environment for our staff. When I'm not doing that, I'm doing it for our clients.
Yeah, you just recently did Depop's office, which I've seen is actually very cool.
Yeah,
it's a lovely space.
Yeah, it's going to be superb. I think they're actually moving in this week.
So, are they?
But yeah.
Oh, very cool.
A massive project for us, but something to be great to be involved in.
The images online look absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So.
Chris?
Chris Davis. I'm CEO of Uncommon. Uncommon have 5 spaces in London, flexible office building, but I guess we buy everything that we try and operate in, so a slightly different model. It's all about the experience that we give to our clients. It's making sure that our team are happy there as well. It's one of constant growth, but doing it very meaningfully, one step at a time.
Yeah, and you've also got some very cool spaces. I can't remember the one that's just around the corner from here. It's not far
Liverpool
away.
Street.
Liverpool Street. Yeah, that's quite a cool space.
Yeah, there's more plants than people.
There are. The first time I went there, I can't remember who I went to meet in your building, but then I walked in and I was like, there are a lot of plants here, but it feels good when you walk in.
Yeah, so, it's a great space. It's also like a mini tower, so you look down the street, all the massive ones. That's kind of like nestled in, full of plants. Basically a greenhouse. So I'm really a gardener.
And Lewis.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. Lewis, I'm the director of workplace and real estate in EMEA for a company called ServiceNow. They're a digital enterprise software company. As we were talking about earlier, made their kind of mark in IT, but moved into HR, coming in kind of the workplace area as well. I've been there about 4 years now, and we've kind of gone through that hyper growth. So we have about 2,500 employees in EMEA right now. Probably about circa 16,000 globally. So it's a company.
And growing through acquisition. The MapWise one, as we were talking just before, was a really interesting one.
Yeah.
To help you find people and to help people find each other in spaces.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of looking to use our own product, but interesting stuff.
So today, gents, thank you for joining me. We're going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So there is Maslow's hierarchy of needs for humans, and our 5 needs are basic needs, which is food, water, warmth, and rest. Safety needs, which is job security and family and things like that. And love and belonging needs, which is friendship and family as well. Esteem needs, prestige and the feeling of accomplishment. Self-actualization needs, so achieving your full potential. But in the building space, it's a little bit different, and it goes from core needs to space needs to productivity needs. And I think, as we were discussing again post the call, that people's needs in that are different. But as you were saying, we need to get the base build right first. So HVAC, light, water, and power. Given what you guys do, you would probably build it for someone like Chris. But how important is that for you to get right for the customer? And how much time do you spend talking to the customer about that? And do they care more now than they did prior to COVID as well?
100%. Yeah, it's become, particularly the air point to that is in a post-pandemic world. I think there's a lot of conversation around air circulation and the environment that you're providing for staff. There's a concern not just on catching coronavirus, but I think just generally it's kind of highlighted the issues that there are in a number of buildings around central London in particular. It's a market I work in, but I don't think it's just central London where there's a problem with it. And I get the feeling landlords are picking up on it and starting to sort of take note of it if they haven't been doing already. But it's just kind of big alarm bells are ringing that needs to be sorted and quickly.
Because it was 8 litres per second. Right now they're talking about 10 litres per second.
Yeah, it's hugely changed. And also the other thing that we've noticed is just generally that environment has become a much bigger question that clients are now asking us. So they're actually saying to us, I would say that it used to be about receptions, views and views. That was the old thing. So it's like, how pretty does a reception look?
Yeah.
Do the toilets work? And how great are they? And then the view was, what can I see from my office? Now it's more about that base build and making sure that that's correct before those things are taken into consideration.
And from a core needs perspective, Chris, from an Uncommon point of view, you are customer first very much, apart from lots of plants. How much harder is it making this for you, given everyone has to think about ESG, cutting carbon, cutting energy costs, but to pump 8 litres per second, 10 litres instead of 8, how much does that impact what you guys are doing, and have you seen energy uplift since having to do it?
Well, the only one I'll add to that is probably the internet as a core need. Like, we can literally everything else could be going wrong, but the internet, as long as that's on, we're fine. Okay, so I'll add internet into this one or connectivity. So, but in terms of like the base build, you've just getting it right, and especially in, I guess, the service office industry, historically got it very wrong, because it's been right. We want to go with big dense environments, and we want to really work the system, but you then get into that whole other argument, which is actually, well, how dense are serviced offices? And I think most of them aren't actually that dense. But getting the base build right, if you're just coming in from a kind of a Cat B point of view, it's almost impossible. The landlord's made all these decisions.
Yeah.
You're then inheriting something that is just flawed. Yeah. But my argument was that it be flawed for any occupier, not just a serviced office occupier.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time, take Liverpool Street, we spend a lot of time going back through and changing a lot of things to make sure that it did work.
Yeah.
And we've got a new site that we're working on at the moment in Holborn that we're spending an awful lot of time making sure that really, really works. And that battleground of air is definitely a huge one. I think people are just realising, well, I think there's some scary fact out there that the air inside some of the offices is 10 times worse than outside.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And you're kind of sitting there and you go, so I'm spending all day in there. Yeah. I need to get this right.
Yeah.
So from our point of view, getting the base stuff right, because from an operational side, you can't go further up. You can't have people worrying about being too cold, all of these things, all of the elements that are in that core point, because then you'll just get complaints all day, and you can't run an operation like that. It's just inefficient.
Well, it's massively reactive, isn't it? Yeah. So, which for service desk tickets, that might be quite a good thing. But
no. Well, I was going to say, from like an employee angle of what we heard, like when kind of we were trying to get people back, safety was the number one thing, right? Whereas in my opinion, I think that's starting to now.
It's number 2 here, but do you know what? Internet's not even in this.
This is crazy. That's such a good point.
Let's start writing all over.
Well, we only saw it 2 days ago when everything went down. Right?
Let's rewrite our own, shall we?
WhatsApp at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry.
But I think going down to like the building infrastructure layer, that was never on any C-suite's radar, and it became like kind of for us once it was in the paper and stuff like that, we got more questions. What are we doing about the AC? Is it, and for all of our buildings, we don't own them, we lease them. So to a certain degree, we are under the control of the landlord, because they will do what they need to do, for the tenants in the building. So
it's interesting. So we work with landlords and tenants, and we have a customer in Spain, and they put indoor air quality sensors in because they were all unhappy about the hot and cold spots of the floor. When they took that data to the landlord, we said, what do you think they're going to do? And they were saying, well, we don't know. They're either going to be proactive or they're going to stick their head in their sand. Fortunately, they were really proactive and said, we didn't realise this, we're really sorry. And they got on it straight away. I think given now indoor air quality is such a big, everyone's become an indoor air quality expert because of COVID, but it's such a big thing. If you don't do anything with it, people will vote with their feet, and they'll, at the end of their lease, they'll go, or they will.
I think that's why we might be skipping the gun, but in terms of like enticing people back and actually signing up to longer leases or even flexible leases, if the landlord isn't willing to do that type of stuff, that will be a deterrent to like a customer coming in.
So base build, hugely important. HVAC is probably the number one. Lighting is coming into it. There's a new British standard coming out called BS 40102, which you might be interested in, which is the requirement to monitor indoor environmental quality rather than just air. So light and noise come into it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't think about light. It's either light enough or not light enough. But actually, light does play a big role, right?
Yeah.
In how people feel in a space, whether it's really bright white or it's warm light or certain times of the day. That I mean, we measure light with hardware partner sensors, but I don't know if that's kind of taken a back step to indoor air quality at the moment.
I think it depends on the industry as well, because we advise across multiple industries, from, you know, our real core really is like creative businesses and fashion and technology. That's like where the majority of our clients come from. Creative businesses love natural light, so they like big open plan spaces, you know, roof terraces, roof lights, bringing in as much light as you possibly can. But then you've actually got another side, which is like the technology gaming sector, which actually don't like natural light because it reflects off their screens. So
That's the dark rooms.
exactly, yeah. So it's actually really difficult for a landlord, because you're trying to create these amazing, you know, bright spaces, but actually the gaming companies are like, when they walk into it, they're often like, it's too much. We can't take that, to a point where they're like, can we put things on the windows to stop the So I think you're never going to win. It's really hard for landlords to know what to do. But I think if you get that base right, at least you've got something to say.
The comfort factor first, right? So if you come in, there's good air quality, you know, because there's more and more studies about CO2 and its effect on cognitive performance and productivity. If you can get that right, you can kind of do everything else. But if you've got an open space, it's fine. But if you're a gaming company, you want lots of small rooms to test. Unless you've got enough air going into those rooms, the gamers are getting a hell of a lot of CO2 within a few hours, and they're groggy and, you know,
drowsy.
You're a bit drowsy. 1,000 parts per million of CO2 is equivalent to 2 pints of beer. It's a fact from Francesca Brady, from our CEO of Air Rated. Always one I like to use. But it is important. I think, you know, going up the stack here, you know, safety and security and safety. That safety comes into indoor air quality these days, not just, you know, safety and security in its original sense. Was, you know, are there enough security guards in the building, you know, protecting us, or whatever the need is, especially in the US. Space analytics, you know, space needs space analytics and flexible space. For you guys, that must be hugely important to understand how people are using your space from a co-working perspective. Have you got enough space? You know, are people using our meeting rooms in a way we intended? How much of that is how much of that drives your decision making when you're doing new builds?
Yeah, I mean, you basically, I mean, why we've been almost slow in one sense, and deliberately taking our time in each building is so that we can do all the learnings from the last one. But it's a constant process. Like, there's a space down in Borough that we over I think it was about 6 months ago, we went through and just changed and tinkered with, and we've got a whole load more works that are going to happen in Liverpool Street at Christmas that are the same thing. It's like, if the space is not being used, it's got to change. Like, it's got to be constantly evolving. But that's just because real estate is also expensive, so you want it to be well used and clients enjoying it. But definitely from an activity-based working style, we make sure we have lots of different spaces in our building, so that if a person wants to be at their desk for a concentrated task, fine, there's your desk, crack on with that one. Or they want to go and have those kind of informal meetings, they'll go and do that in the coffee lounge. Or they'll want to go into like secluded quiet space, that's over there as well. So it's about having those different cubby holes that work for people in different tasks. And that's kind of the way people want to be working now. But you've got to manage it.
It's purpose led. Like, I find that with our teams that are returning globally, it's always for a reason now, as opposed to coming in 5 days a week. You know, there's a reason, and it's either team led or management led. You know, that's definitely the trends we're seeing.
Yeah. On that note, like, we've actually, in this stats the last couple of weeks, we've had more people in our buildings than we had pre-COVID. So you then go, right, so people really are back. Like,
I have to say, I've been in it almost every day throughout the whole of lockdown, and this week the trains are back to normal. Like literally, no space on trains anymore. I loved empty footpaths. I loved having my own carriage. But London is back, right? I mean, our occupancy index is off the charts. But London's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to queue for my coffee the other day. I didn't know what to do. It's amazing. Like you actually have to build in a bit more time to get.
Yeah, the time you would normally take.
Yeah.
Mine used to be 45 minutes door to door, and today trying to walk from. I did normally get on the front of the train. I got the back of the train. I'm like, wow, there's like hundreds of people in front of me now. What's going on here? So
What are they doing?
yeah, do you know this is my platform and my train these days, people? I need to jump back to some questions because there are questions written down that people have actually asked. So I've been kind of ad-libbing for the first part. So question. I will come to you, Chris, on this one. Do you agree or disagree with the core space and productivity needs? If not, why not? Or would you add anything else? Which you've already said internet because that wasn't on there. But
yeah, look, I think the core elements you've just got to get right, and it's just a given. The problem is it's a bit of an evolving sphere, and a lot of it. And let's add all the ESG stuff that's coming, all the carbon elements in there. We've been doing it a lot ourselves. You end up scratching your head going, so which way should we go? And no one's really very clear about that.
Yeah,
that's an issue when it's going to be a core thing for every business. So there's more that's going to be constantly added into that pile, and I don't think we have all the answers yet. And carbon is such a big topic to go into, especially in the real estate sector.
we could do another podcast just on
it's
that
a
alone,
whole
right?
podcast.
So it's ESG, SECR, and I heard someone told me a month or two ago that, and I don't know how accurate it is, but I've spoken to someone who does work there. PwC are hiring 4,000 ESG consultants over the next 3 years. It's like, that's huge, right? That tells you in itself that it's going to be really complicated for businesses. Do you hire someone, or do you go and bring the expertise in and help deliver it? Because no matter what happens, this won't be the last pandemic. Hopefully it will be, touch wood, but you're right. Things are evolving faster than they ever have before because of lockdown.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, the ESG point, like there's 250 million square foot of space in the London office space, and how much of that is probably like 2% that's operationally carbon neutral, and you're kind of then going, right, well, okay, and how much space do we refurb a year? 15 million-ish square foot. Like you're basically there going, and how long until we've got to, it's like 2030 when most people, they go, the maths doesn't work. So we're just going to have all these assets that people can't go and be corporately in. That is a completely other topic. Hence a ramble.
So I guess next one, could or any of you give examples from all of your experiences with your clients or your own offices where you've seen productive space and core needs make a difference? I'll come to you.
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to the other point that in terms of when people are coming in now, it's the classic collaboration. It's not to really do solo work.
Yeah.
I think I'm fortunate being in a technology-driven company that everyone is set up for success at home. So really, the office space there is a tool for collaboration. So I think the productivity factor is that, they have the technology to enable them to do what they need to do.
Yep.
Listening to the business, we haven't seen a dip in that productivity. So I think we're talking about reimagining the workspace. We are doing that in our workplaces, and we will have to entice people back, not just because we want them to use our real estate, but because we want to add value. So that's definitely like the biggest kind of thing I'm concentrating on, is how we, look to add that productivity. Because I think workplaces always struggle to show how we add productivity for the business. So before, we had people coming in, it was great if they had a great sales quarter, dev were doing great, but now they're doing it at home. So how do we, I think that's an interesting one as to how can we show we're at that added value now with our workplace? And I don't think anyone has the answer just yet. But if someone does.
Are you as ServiceNow asking people to come back, or is it choice or?
Yeah, so we extended choice like everyone, like 3 times.
Yeah.
So it's now January, they have choice to do what they wish. But whichever way it's going to be, they will have flexibility. And I think really, especially in the EMEA market, everyone had informal flexibility pre-COVID, but now we're actually having to formalize that, and which has its own added complex with, employee law and all that type of thing. But, it isn't necessary we want them to use the real estate. It's more we want them to be together from a cultural perspective.
Yeah.
That everyone's talking about.
And are you changing the offices because of COVID? Are you changing for collaboration spaces?
Yeah, so we're definitely going towards that. We're going to, we're looking at more modularization, so being able to have more flexibility with the space as opposed to building, solid walls and everything. And we're looking to adapt. But I think ServiceNow, even though we're in that workspace, we don't have sensors. We're still using badge data, which has all of its faults, right?
We can help you there.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. So we don't have a great deal of data to actually inform that decision. And we have a reservation management system, but they could book a desk and never turn up. So what do we do? So it's very much we're kind of slowly doing it and seeing what we kind of fall with in terms of feet through the door.
Yeah,
Chris, you're in.
I mean, that added value point that's literally what we've got to kind of solve. Like, there's no use just being effectively a box that holds laptops.
Doesn't work anymore, does it?
That's what, and I think that all these trends were here pre-COVID. Like, it was all about better space.
Yeah.
It's just turbocharged. We're now kind of saying it's got to be the best space. People willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
In that hierarchy of needs, like you kind of. People are coming along and saying, I will pay for that best space because I know that my people will be more productive in here.
Yeah.
And we're just going to make sure that we kind of solve that, hence the sensory side.
Yeah.
But it's all about, you've got to give them a reason to be there.
Yeah. We actually moved office during lockdown. We actually very cleverly signed our lease 2 weeks before the first lockdown. So
Perfect.
Being an office agent, that was a great one. But we didn't know how long it was going to go on for. But even before COVID hit, we had everything designed and ready to go. And one of the big things was changing the way we worked. So rather than when you have a meeting, people think you should go in a meeting room. But what we changed within our office is we oversized our breakout area. So our breakout takes up probably about 30% of our office space. And the reason that we've done that is that we want it to be a space that is multi-use. So we have parties in there. There's a big screen on the TV. People can play games on it. We can have team meetings on it. We've had client presentations in it. We've had we've hosted events in it. So it's become this like multi-collaboration space. And that's the best thing we ever did, because now our staff want to be there. They want to be in the office. And it's great because we're now bringing clients to our office to say, this is the example, this is how you should do it. And it's now got to a point where our boardroom sits there empty. So we're now questioning, do you need that boardroom? Could you actually remove it? Like, why you feel, I've been doing this for 15 years, you feel like you should have a boardroom because that's what everyone has. But it's like, do you actually use it? Do you need it? And what do you get from it? So it's kind of like, I think that's what's going to happen over the next few years, is just things change. But as you said, I think it's changing anyway. It's just that the pandemic's come.
It's accelerated it. The next one is, how would you go about implementing a hierarchy of real estate needs based on this? What would, I'll come back to you on this one. This is about a new build almost, this one. It's, how would you go about implementing this? What would be your kind of, apart from the base build, of course, with internet?
Yeah, within saying that. Like, once you've kind of, it's exactly that point. It's thinking about, well, how do people actually want to use this space to get the most kind of engagement? Like, we have a lot of amenity space in our buildings. It's for that point that they come and have coffees up there. Like, how many conversations genuinely need to be in a private meeting room? Really, we have those as well, obviously, for all of our members that need that. And there are times that is exactly the right space to be, but you've got to have like flexibility around it, and it's got to be able to be the party area. It's got to be able to be the breakout space, whatever it kind of needs to be. It's got to be able to evolve on that one. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts, I guess. On it.
I think your point, and your point as well, Toby, is about people need to want to come back. Forcing them back, like in a lot of public sector, I think has got a lot of change to happen. Because they will have to force people back because their buildings are old and horrible, and they never really upgrade them. That's a whole other story. But I think you're right. I think the requirement for people that want to come back, and it depends. We've got a very young team. Most of them out there today. We had no one in the office, and now everyone wants to be back. Number one, because they either weren't living in London before. And they live in London for a reason, so they can go out and they can do things after work. We happen to have quite a good office. It's not as good as yours, don't tell my team. But
I can sort
good. We'll talk after this. But it is the want to come back, not the you have to come back. That I think is the biggest change that I think that we've seen dealing with customers, whether they be landlord or tenant. Landlords are saying, I need people to come back and I need to entice them. I can't just say, we're at, I wouldn't want to come in Arthur Street because the buildings are still going on, but, HB Revis building across the road is awesome, but, not just because of the location, but because of, the roof garden and everything else, that's a building you want to go into.
Yeah.
If it's like, do you know what? I've been working at home for 12 months. It's so much nicer than the shitty old office I used to work in and they're stuck in the corner with no air quality.
Yeah.
But they'll just leave the company.
Yeah, they will. Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Like, people will just vote with their. And
There was a survey about this not long ago, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's why though people are like actually on tours now. It's not just the finance and the property team that's there. It's actually being driven by HR. I think people have finally worked out that if they look at their overhead, 60 to 80%, depending on what industry you're in, is actually staff costs.
Yeah.
So if my staff are happier because they're in a better office and a better environment, Maslow hierarchy of needs, it does all of that.
Yeah.
Then it's worth paying whatever rate it is because you're getting almost a 10x return.
Yes.
So like that extra £2.50 that might be negotiating, it doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Your staff, they're more productive, they're happier, they stay longer, it's easier to recruit, all of these things. So it's all about the people.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we were having that same conversation on retention today, especially in the tech space where it's just ultra competitive. Like everyone's undercutting everyone.
Mate,
doing all that, right?
Yeah, it's tech
crazy.
space. You can't hire enough people at the moment.
No, exactly. But I think I see it as more like a holistic view because I think if a business comes and just specifically talks about the office to say how great it is, we want you to come in, and people will kind of see the underlying tone. I think, whereas if it's kind of like a holistic message about, hey, you can work from anywhere, you have this option, then it's like, oh great, I have choice, I have, as to different things. I think, communication, change management is going to be huge in terms of if your company is successful, whatever that looks like for them, in terms of how they return.
I think there's two bits to it as well. There's actually getting people back, and then there's keeping them.
That's what Chris said, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's about paying a little bit more extra per square foot, because what people don't necessarily take into account, I don't think, and as an ops person, you try and you look at every cost, present and future. If you don't retain people, your cost of employing someone and training them up, there's a cost for that. There's the cost of then needing to recruit. If they leave someone else, then all of that knowledge and time you spent is lost. If you're just treating people well, is just a given, right? But if they're in a space that they love, that's like you said, Maslow's the love and the food, water, warmth, and rest and security and everything else. It all happens, right? If you've got a good space, productive space, and a space where people want to be and like to be, it ticks all the boxes.
So it also allows that kind of FOMO, that fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So if they see the people that are at home, see the people out in the office going, this is great. We've got all this staff, we've got this new office, and then it kind of creates that, I'm missing out here. Being in the office, it will get people back. It will encourage that move back.
Yeah, but I think on me looking from our side and having a conversation with HR, then you have that conversation around, well, we actually want equality between the people that are remote and the people that are in the office. Which is
upgrade everyone's house.
Right. And then you're kind of opening up Pandora's box. Where's the money thing? And I think what we find in the conversations with with the business and the people that are coming in is literally that first step. Once they get past the commute and they're in, they're like, oh, it's not too bad, And then I am kind of like, well, spread the message. It's not that bad when you're in. It's
but
a good space.
there is a fine balance. So GSK is a customer of ours. They did a survey and they put a survey out of how many people would want to work from home permanently. And it was actually lower than people expected. But the people who wanted to work from home permanently were people with 2-hour commutes or more. It's like, I can understand why you want to work from home. But anyone less than that, if you've got a good space, I have a wife and 3 kids. My house is chaos. I want to be in the office, but a good office. So, that again, depending on how young you are, depending on, even an hour's travel. I think the average travel to an office in London is something like an hour and a half or something. So that's average. But if you're at 2 hours or 2.5, and Meg's our ops director, she comes in a couple of days a week, but she's got a 2.5 hour commute. So that I can understand. But if you're an hour, 45 minutes wanting to get there and go to the office, like you say, because it's awesome, and then fear of missing out. You'll just come in, right?
Yeah.
You just come in and spend time in the office. But when you're in that office, making it as productive as possible, meeting the people you need to meet, doing the meetings you need to do, seeing the customers you might need to see. That's, I think, the difference has happened as well. When people come to the office, they're a lot more organized than they were before, because you should just go to the office. Now, if you go into the office, you have to be more productive, because you've got to book, is Chris in, is Toby in, who's in that I need to go and see. And if they're not there, what am I going to do? Or do I really need to go in? But
and then that's that tech factor in there as well, right? Like, how do I know when people are in the office?
I do think we still, like, Teams and Zoom, like, you just lose everything. There's a reason 4 of us are sitting here, not just on a Zoom call.
That was lucky.
But like, you hold a meeting, and if there's 4 in a room and 3 people aren't, it's very difficult to have, and you lose that human side.
You do
around the edges of, like, when we finish this and then start talking about something else. And
once you've hung up the video, you're done, right? Whereas we talk before this started, and we'll talk after this started, and we might even go to the pub. But the person who was on the video, they're kind of out of sight, out of mind now, right?
It's like so we just built that customer briefing center, I was saying, and spent X amount on the technology, and we're holding customer briefings, and people are dropping off on the Zoom call because it's not working, or it's not, they can't have that connection with the client. So I think the technology has got a long way to go to replicate this.
I don't think it will ever get there, really. Unfortunately,
you can't read body language on a video call. Like, if we're pitching to clients, or we're having internal meetings, or even just being with your mates in the office, you read body language. So if you've got a staff member who's having a bad day, that's very hard to read on Zoom. You can pick it up within 2 minutes of walking in the office. You can deal with it.
When you're on Zoom, you're like this. Or like that.
Everyone just it's body language is key. When we pitch, we always try to do face-to-face pitches, and we still do now. It's client dependent, but trying to pitch with a colleague. One of my colleagues, I've worked with him for 5 years. We did a first pitch on Zoom during the lockdown. It was terrible because you're so used to being, that nod over, you ready, your bit. You just that instant reaction that you have with somebody. You don't have that on Zoom. It just doesn't work. It's really hard. So
do not raise your hand.
So my turn. So
it is. I don't think that'll ever. I don't think that'll ever change. And if you're in a meeting, whether you guys are talking about something about ServiceNow, wanting to bring people in, like your acquisition of Mapwise, I don't think that was done over Zoom, right? But figuring out how you integrate that into your system to make it seamless, you're not going to do that over Zoom. You can't do it. And big deals, big events, big meetings, they have to be face to face. So it's an interesting one. Although I have to say, I was at the Smart Building Show this morning. There was not a lot of people there. I thought first major event back, it'll be packed. There weren't that many people, so I'm glad we didn't buy a stand. So the next one. So I think we've already kind of answered this while talking. It says, do you think there has been a shift in workplace needs? Yes, we've all kind of asked that. From what have you seen from a client perspective, given
in terms of work? I mean, the big word is obviously hybrid. Everyone talks about that. That's kind of I'd say one of the biggest requirements from our clients. There's definitely our technical team are doing a lot of reshifting of current offices. So in terms of looking at space plans, how they have been laid out and how clients now want them laid out. I would say that there is an element of boxing in spaces to create smaller Zoom style spaces, because they just have to deal with that, whether that's a long-term thing or they know. And then also a reduction in desk amounts and sizes. So we've definitely seen people wanting to clear out desks to an extremity where you now have clients that just want lounge sofas and high benches where people can come in, drop in, work for a bit, go into a meeting room, have the meeting, come back out. So that demand from that side has definitely changed. really dependent on sector as well.
Yeah.
But again, these things were all happening before.
Just accelerated.
Again, there's collaboration, hotel lounge style, hotel lobby style spaces. That was all coming into the market anyway. So it's that those demands have always been there. It's just that they're becoming more and more important to our clients.
From a co-working space perspective, Chris, you need more people at desk, but you obviously don't cram them in like some do. But how do you work out the balance with how much collaboration space you need as opposed to desk, where lots of people are ripping them out? We're working with a customer just off the M4, and they've ripped out like 20% of their desks to have collaboration spaces, but you can't really do that.
Well, I mean, it's how we kind of. That's almost exactly the business model that we've had. We've got a listed entity that came to us and said, we don't know what we want. And we're like, that's absolutely fine. We'll build you what you want, what you think you want now. That was only one side of the floor had desks. The rest was breakout spaces and meeting rooms. And just said, well, if it doesn't work for you in 12 months, we'll change it. We'll put some more desks in.
Yeah.
But we don't actually sell the desks in that sense. Like we're driven by how many people are sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
We sell space. Yeah. So for us, I don't care. You could have a whole floor and just be one person on there if you want to.
Yeah.
Pretty weird thing to do, but like, absolutely go for it. But the way our business is going to go in the future is just going to be about listening to people and just creating the space they want. And that's where the culture piece comes massively into, because every company's different. Like what's perfect for one company isn't for another.
Yeah. And one of the things I have been reading is a lot more people are looking at co-working spaces and flexible workspace because they don't want a 10 or 20 year lease either. So they'll come to you and say, great, we've got 10 people now, we might be 20 people, but can we take this space? And if they don't have a 20-year lease, they don't have to put a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
For you guys, I think the future's quite bright, I think.
Yeah. I mean, figures and occupancies been going certainly in a very good way. So no, I think it makes a lot of sense. And the offering though has to keep up. Like, it has to just keep getting better and be that much more ahead of the market.
Lewis, from a ServiceNow perspective, how much because you guys have evolved a lot, right, since day one of IT and service, how much of your platform now is around the HR piece and getting feedback from people? Because one of the things we haven't talked about is, and I think needs to happen more, is the feedback from employees, but not just your own employees, but the customers who use your platform. Have you got that in your platform yet?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the beauty of ServiceNow is that it talks between silos. Yeah. So like any company, they have an IT silo, HR silo, workplace silo. Yeah. Whereas the beauty of the platform is that all the workflows are integrated. So if I have a problem in workplace that impacts IT, it flows into that, right? And I think the pandemic, to kind of take it away from workplace and go to, workflow and into people, has helped kind of break the silos down, because I've had to work with HR more than ever in my life, IT, and those, safety and security, etc. So I think that, that portion there has helped the business kind of from a people perspective. And I think that, coming back to, I know it's the tech sector, but we're always, and even more so now, people-led. If we don't listen to what their needs and wants are, because I'd say that people are more in a power position at the moment, especially with like flexibility, then you're playing a pretty dangerous game. So, we won't, I'm kind of on the side of not pandering to every employee's needs, because you'll never do it. And I think you do need to have guidelines around flexibility, etc. Yeah. But we certainly listen to, we survey everyone to death, to understand what they want. I think coming back to kind of the co-working space is that, companies will want their brand identity still, in a co-working space, that culture, that type of thing. And I think that's a big thing for me if I was looking out into the market, to understand that.
But like Chris said, for them, it's space, it's not just desk. So whatever branding and,
but I agree with the flexibility thing. Yeah. Like, if you were to come and say we're just going to put desks in there, then it's not going to work for anyone, right?
Yeah, I mean, no one really operates a lot of the space as a call center, which is what the kind of prevailing thing of, and this is where you get kind of caught up in terms like co-working. Like, we do very little with co-working. We basically have private offices. Yeah. Like 90% of our business and revenue is just private offices. but we have that layer of amenity that then goes on top. The co-working model, the true form, which is individuals going and sitting next to an individual, that really suffered during the pandemic, and I don't think it comes back, because the issue with that is that you've got so much competition, because you've got competition from Starbucks, every private members club, all of these things. So it's just not a market that we want to be in.
And John Lewis now have even said that they'll put co-working spaces in their stores.
That's
a great idea.
Yeah, go.
I think that would be like
pressing products everywhere.
I think that, like, in terms of like suburbs and those hotspots, that, you know, that type of model makes sense. I think it'd be very interesting in like London and things like that as to what happens and how companies tend to do it. You know, because the 2.5 hour commute, those people will have to be supported in some capacity, whether that's in their home or they get given access, right? Yeah. So, you know, our WeWork enterprise thing is probably going to, you know, go up globally because people want that, you know. But it's still very much like, you know, we want to generate the culture. So we don't want to have such a disparate population that anybody can be anywhere. Yeah. You know, we're very conscious of maintaining that and still having hubs for people to come into.
Yeah. So we've got some quick fire questions here that I need to run through. That if I don't, Charlotte will yell at me. So I will fire these off, each one of you. So something we talk about: work from home or office?
Office.
Office.
Yeah. That
was easy. All four of us office. So co-working space or own office?
Mix of both.
Yeah, I was going to say it's dependent on the business. Yeah, where you are. If you're a startup, one person co-working, great. If you're a 30-person and above that's trying to create their own environment and their own brand, I'd probably say private office. So
yeah, I think you're right, Chris. I think more and more people are going into spaces that are generally larger and wanting spaces like yours rather than taking traditional rents. And because if they take a space in Uncommon, you can be flexible enough to change it much faster than they can, because, you know,
we've got whole teams that do it.
Whole teams that do it. When you're a bank, that's not your bread and butter. You've got to bring someone in to then say, right, how do you want to do this? How do you want us to redesign? And then there's a whole process. But if you've got them in the building all day, every day, and you see how they work and how they operate, and you've got information and data to help you with that, it's a much better solution and much easier for them to not have to think about. And for them, if they don't have to bring the contractors in and do everything else, and you can do it for them, I think what you're doing will grow.
I think it's a capital expense as well for a company like us not to have that and be able to do that. It's massive, you know, because especially now that we have to justify everything we do in workplace, adding value again.
And we can obviously we have 8 suppliers that because we're doing it over scale, you then get the economies of scale. So that's how it works. And your point on flexibility, like that. People want the flexibility of not signing a 10-year lease or a 5-year lease, and you can see that with the terms just dropping down. But actually, when we're talking about flexibility, they also don't want 1 month or 2 months terms. Like, no one does that. So I think that was when people start to say flexible. That's what they thought they were saying about. They're not. We're talking 1, 2, 3 terms.
Otherwise, you can say, "Sorry, I've got a better deal with another customer." You'll be out in a month.
There is a trend as well. Like with the traditional landlords, conventional style leases are generally terms are, you know, coming down quite dramatically. And we've also seen landlords now saying that they'll carry out fit outs on behalf of the client. Category plus, all these buzzwords flying around at the minute in terms of what that actually means. But, you know, fitted spaces are becoming more popular, and that is a reaction to the fact that people don't want capex; they want shorter leases. And so I think that's a bit more of a trend, but that needs to evolve. That's you know, around the service industry, you guys have sort of catapulted that. And now the traditional landlords have gone, oh, you know, I need to do something here, so they're trying to catch up. But there's a long way to go before they do catch up with the service world. But it's definitely changing. Like you can see that. People just aren't going to pay money. You know, they're not going to pay £2 million for a fit out now. They don't want to spend that money. That they want that to recruit people. So landlords are going to have to put their hands in their pockets.
They are, and that's going to be a bit of a cutthroat world, I think, for the next few years, especially with people now looking more at their end of their lease more than ever before. Whereas before they're like, we'll just roll it over. Actually, do I have too much space? Can I shrink down and spend more money and create an awesome space? Can I just go to Uncommon instead of taking my own space? Forget another 10-year lease. Let's go and get year on year with Uncommon and get a flexible space, not flexible, not co-working, but flexible space.
I mean, no one writes 10-year business plans. So
No.
one Earth
Yeah.
would you take a 10-year lease?
That's very true. That's very true. Sleeping pods, yay or nay?
I'm an A on these. Yeah, not. We've had a couple of clients put them out. Firstly, I think it encourages people staying too long in the office, which I don't think is a good thing. And it just doesn't feel like a good use of space. It's putting in a bed for someone to sleep in. So yeah, not for me.
We don't have any, so I'd say no. But if you're looking at like future work flexibility, working any hours, and someone wants to come in and sleep, then I would have an argument for that. That's it.
I'll go meditation pods. They're a yes, but sleeping pods operationally as well. They're called hotels.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a no. If I'm asleep, I'm in my own bed. I don't want to crash out anywhere else. But there are some trains of thoughts of people saying, well, techies like to work strange hours, like get up really late, 11 or 12, go to work, do stuff, crash out for a bit, and then they wake up and they've got an idea. But still, I don't know. And personally, I'm a no, because I if I'm asleep, I'm in my own bed, hopefully with my wife. But it's yeah, I can't see it. You know, that's the valuable space. And meditation rooms, yes, but valuable space for people sleeping. You know, I don't know if you've ever worked in Asia, but in Asia, people sleep at lunchtime all the time, at their desks. But none of them have beds, and none of them have sleeping pods to do this. It's like if you want to sleep, you sleep at your desk or under your desk, even, which some of them do. But it's I'm a no as well. Your favourite office that you've ever worked in? Yours must be a new one.
Oh, it's got to be. Best office in Shoreditch. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, no, I think it's been great to design it ourselves. It's finally, a space that we've actually got that we're really, really happy with, and does all that we wanted to do. So, yeah definitely.
Lewis?
I'd probably say the one we did, we delivered it over the pandemic in Petah, Israel. Just a cool space, kind of fits the needs of the business. It's kind of future of work. Just looks good. Looks good.
Yours got to be yours.
Ours, but it's like I can't pick one. It's picking a favourite child. So they're all great for different reasons.
Yeah, mine. I would love to say it was here, but it's not. So when I worked and lived in Asia, like 98, 99, I worked for a telco company, and back then we had a very cool office. So we were in IFC1 in Hong Kong, and we looked over the harbour. And even back then, we weren't flooded with desks. We did have some very cool breakout spaces, and they were all by the windows where you could just look out over Hong Kong Harbour, Victoria Harbour. That's going way back. But we were a tech company. We were, data centers, building data centers, running undersea cable. So back then, in the .com boom, we were classed as a very young and hip and trendy tech company to work for. Yeah. And even back then, tech was doing it then. Because if you did it, even back then, people would leave. If WorldCom, we were level 3. There was AT&T, Sprint, WorldCom, Hana Pacific. There were all of these others. If you didn't have an awesome office and give everyone great kit, they're off. They're off somewhere else.
Yeah.
So.
It's interesting as well. Like, whilst our office is my favourite in terms of buildings on the market, you've got things like 100 Liverpool Street, British Land Scheme at Broadgate.
I went there the other week. It's an awesome.
It's just mind blowing.
It's an amazing building.
Yeah. 22 Bish is.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to have a tour around it. I mean, what they've done there is incredible. I don't too excited about office buildings. You see so many, but those two stand out. They are incredible, forward-thinking buildings. So they're going to be the future. They are that's the future.
I haven't been in 22 yet, but I've been in 100 Liverpool Street. That's
they're quite
like
similar.
You being in so many. You just kind of walk in, sign in, and move on. But that 100 Liverpool Street, that is an amazing space.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
So, and that's technology. I think they've not taken it too far. It's kind of what needs to be there, and you can actually see the advantages it has to what it brings to the building. But just in terms of spaces, circulation spaces, the common areas, what they've done in those two buildings is incredible.
Yeah. Sitting down or standing up desks?
I'd probably go standing up. I'm much more alert. Stood up. Our meetings are much more productive. If we have everyone stood around our collaboration area, they're probably 25% less in terms of time, and probably 25% more productive.
Oh wow, that's good to know.
People don't start slouching and not actually concentrating. I think they're much more focused on stand up.
So we give everyone sit to stand desks, so they have the choice. I'd probably say standing as well. I walk around way too much, so I tend to walk around the buildings all the time. So yeah, standing.
Okay, choice. If you can make it go up and down.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm the same. Although we don't have them here, I sit on a ball. Actually, I don't sit on a chair. But after a while, the ball tells you need to get up because otherwise your back your muscles, because you're using your core and your back to sit down. But yeah, I think flexibility. We're talking about it here about how we give, change everything from the option of sit or stand desk. But
just change.
I think it's like
we'll come to you.
Come on, because we were chatting about this the other day. We were talking about kind of like desks and having to put a sensor underneath there and all that is different, like the charging points on the desk and things. I think that should be the future, kind of an integrated thing. So when you're an employee and you come in, you're not looking for a charging point. It's all kind of intuitive. And I'd say kind of a lot of employees and things are starting, not entitlement is the wrong word, but there's, the demand for kind of that type of stuff is expected now. And I think within service now, especially with like the workflows and things, if something isn't working well with the reservation, the management system, all that, you certainly hear about it.
Yeah, very quickly. Yeah. Before lockdown, I went to a show, an office show where they had desks. One desk had its own heating and cooling, and it was up and down desk as well. I'm like, okay, that was. It was an expensive desk, but how much you can have some people full blast heat all year round, and some people full blast cold. Your heat map would be off the charts.
It's like the utopia, isn't it? Where the BMS knows you're there, and knows what you like, the music, the senses, all that type of stuff. Utopia.
We've all answered this one as well. Face-to-face meetings or virtual, we all know that's face-to-face. We answered that one before. When you're not working, where do you spend your time, or how do you spend your time?
Like socially or in the pub?
Anything. How do you spend your time when you're not working?
Yeah, looking after my 2-year-old. That's what I do.
Full-time job.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd say friends and doing sports, big into sports. That's where I spend most of my time. I'm actually running the Paris Marathon in 2 weekends' time.
Nice.
But that is my first marathon, so I wouldn't say I do it all the time. But
you're entering into the 1% club. So 1% of the planet has won a marathon.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better if I do it. Yeah.
It's a stat that someone told me a while ago who ran their first marathon.
So do I.
Oh, wow.
You're in an even smaller percentage club. You've just got to catch up.
Yeah. Jesus.
Next time we do a podcast, you'll have to have done more than one.
Yeah.
I'll give you some tips.
Well, basically any sport that can almost kill me tends to attract me. So that's whether it's jumping out planes, fighting various people in jiu-jitsu, anything like that, any sport, kind of my thing.
Yeah, I'm a sports nut as well. I don't do much running anymore because I've got a knackered ankle that I need an operation on, but I'm going to wait till the winter. But kickboxing for a long time, and then now it's kayaking, cycling, and running when I can. So yeah, which is now starting to be a pain because running is my winter sport and my ankle's knackered. So my wife.
Cycling around London's getting better though.
It is,
yeah. Like there are cycle lanes everywhere now. Much to the annoyance of every driver, which I also really enjoy.
I live next door to Richmond Park, so I'm quite spoiled.
Yes.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So literally, it's
a nice loop. That
it's not even a kilometre from my house. So I do that 4 days a week. So
very
either
good.
Morning or evening. So knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self? I don't know where that question came from. That's related to what we're talking about. But hey.
I'd be about 10, I think. I don't mind going first. What advice? Is that just general?
That's general. I think it doesn't have anything else wrapped around it. That is, yeah. I thought we were going about officers and things, but we've gone off on a tangent. What would you tell your younger self? I'd say let's make it about work, because life, that could go on a whole different tangent.
I think I think for me, I'd try and get in the tech space sooner and learn more like code and that type of stuff. I think that would be useful in kind of maybe the world we'll go into and the kind of the real estate workplace, because I think it's ripe for disruption in both the physical and also the technology space. So
I'd buy a lot of Bitcoin.
You wouldn't be here.
I then wouldn't be here. It'd be great. I'd be on my island.
Yeah, You're like,
Not worry about air quality. I'm on an island.
outside,
Yeah.
where it's nice. There's a little microplastics in the water, but hey, you've got
Yeah.
enough money, you could get that filtered
Yeah.
out. So, Toby.
I'd probably say don't put too much pressure on yourself because it all comes good in the end. So
I like that.
that's cool.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I tend to do that. But I would have bought Bitcoin as well.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't have to worry.
Yeah. I think that's the best advice.
Well, and then you literally would not have to spend your time indoors. You could spend your time outside wherever you want, whichever country you want, whichever island you want. You wouldn't be able to buy lots, but it depends on how much Bitcoin you bought. But yeah, if I could spend I'm an Aussie, so I was from my youngest age. My mum was like, "Get out of the house and come back when you need to eat or go to the toilet." So, and weather is conducive to that, whereas here it's not, and you spend a lot more time indoors. I was in Oslo 2 weeks ago, and talking to a guy who was Norwegian's, most accomplished downhill skier, and he said, I was the opposite until I retired. I spent 90% of my time outdoors, and now I'm spending more time indoors. And he said it's horrible. He's like, I said, what are you going to do then? He said, I'm going to go and train people, or go, his knees are a bit knackered, so he's like, I can't physically do downhill all the time anymore, but he's going to try and figure out what he can do to just remain outside, because indoors air is worse than it is outdoors. There's, when we open a window, we used to say years ago, we'll let some fresh air in, but actually it's not fresh air anymore that's coming in. But
I think with like the winter months coming, it gets darker working from home. I'll be interested to see then if we hear the demand to say go into the office. Yeah. I get the illness thing over the holiday period of going into winter, but I think the isolation will kind of get worse.
Well, it was starting, we definitely saw there was that increase in people coming back, and then obviously we had another lockdown, but you could feel that people were coming back because you didn't want to be at home all the time. 5 hours a day, like a day, that's going to weigh you down with no interaction with people.
It was hard for a lot of people, right? Yeah. I mean, the amount of mental health issues, one of the negative, there were quite a few negative things, but the positive thing I think out of it is everyone's realized they like people and they want to be around people. The negative part was the loneliness, and coming into winter now, I think we'll see it get busier and busier in London. I don't think we'll see more people staying at home, unless it's completely pissing rain or it snows or something, then people will stay home, unless there's no respite in the rain. I think people care how cold it is. So I think people will come in.
Because that was my probably biggest regret is in terms of how we handled the pandemic is we didn't open soon enough. Like we didn't allow people to come back. Like the noise of people saying, I want to come back because of X, Y, and Z. Like we had a very rigid kind of stance on what we needed to do in order to open the physical office. And that's kind of me looking back. I was like, we're probably a bit too strong.
But you weren't the only ones. Lots of companies did it, right? They were erring on the side of caution, right? Because there were lots of people who wanted to get out of home and get in. A lot of people have a house. Some people have shared flat shares, or they live in a bed sit or a flat, literally 1-bedroom flat. Getting out is massively important, but a lot of people weren't. There's some. My physio was telling me it's busier than ever from people working at home rather than going to the office. So I think more and more people will come into the office, even in the winter.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
One of our head of tech, Sam, and Julian, one of our techies, Julian said they do bets all the time, never more than £3. But Julian said there's definitely going to be a lockdown at the end of September, so he's had to cough up £3. But I don't think they'll bring one in. I mean, the numbers.
I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised.
There's a lot of we've got bigger fish to fry at the moment. So.
I agree.
Petrol would be nice.
Yeah,
I managed
lorry drivers.
I managed to fill up the other morning on my way to kayak training. It was 5:15. I have to leave and go from Putney to Richmond. And I was driving along. The shell was open. I'm like, straight in, filled up. I'm like, results. I've got a full tank of fuel because I had 30 miles left on the clock.
Yeah,
so
that's about where I am.
I'd be very surprised.
I would be as well. I know there was talk of it, but I'd be very surprised. I think there would be uproar. I don't think people would listen. I think being an Aussie and be a bit like what Australia was doing in that. Unfortunately, I'm an Aussie, but there's a lot of anti-vaxxers, and I don't think I agree with that. Well, I don't agree with that. But there's people now going like lockdown. We're done. 236 days of lockdown. We're finished. So they're leaving home. So I don't think there'll be one here.
No.
Onwards and upwards for the winter drinking season.
Yeah.
I've stopped drinking in October. So when we go to the pub, if we go to the pub afterwards, I'm not drinking. I'll buy you all beer or whatever you would like. But gents, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you very much for your time. We've actually run over time, so obviously this was a proper ramble. Thank you everybody for joining in. Really appreciate it. Our next PropTech Ramble, which should have on my notes. If I don't, I won't be telling you. No, I don't. Do I? No, I don't. So I won't tell you what it is.
I can make it up.
Yeah, let's make it up. What are we going to talk about next week?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. When to buy it and how to buy it.
Yeah. Can you pay your rent in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you very much for joining. Take care.